Welcome, city officials. Thank you for joining us for the final Form 700 Filer Information Center session offered before the April 1st, 2021 annual filing deadline. Before we begin today's session, we'd like to go over a few housekeeping items. Today's session is being recorded. Presentation slides and recording will be online at sfethics.org within 48 hours. Attendee microphones will be automatically muted during presentation. Attendee video is disabled during the entire session. During the Q&A segment, attendees joining on computer and/or laptop who wish to ask a question should raise hand by selecting the hand icon and wait for the host to call your name and unmute your mic. If joining by telephone, dial *3 to raise your hand. For those who may not be familiar with the raise hand functionality in the WebEx platform, rest assured instructions will be provided during the Q&A portion of today's session. Questions may also be submitted via email to ethics.commission@sfgov.org. Once again, questions may also be submitted via email to ethics.commission@sfgov.org. Also, please note that questions submitted by email should receive a response within 3 business days. I will now turn it over to Pat Peterson, our Engagement and Compliance Officer, who will lead today's session. Pat?
Thank you, Ronald. Just a moment, everyone.
Pat,
All right.
Ronald, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, yeah, you need to, your notes are showing.
Well, that's not good. And is that better, Ronald?
Yeah, but you have looks like you have you have to start moving some windows or closing some windows.
I would be lost without Ronald. How's that?
Yes, and then you also have a little small one at the very bottom right-hand corner.
Now how's that?
Okay, perfect.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming. This is the February 17, 2021 session for filing officers and filing liaisons and department heads who are helping us with the Form 700 filings, both electronic and on paper. Here we go. Just a moment. So here's today's agenda. We're going to go over the statement of economic interests, about the schedules, how it supports transparency, why we do this. We're going to talk about filing officer duties and filing liaison duties. This is where you help paper filers and you help us with electronic filers getting everybody to the finish line, which is April 1st. We're going to go over for you, in case you're not a Form 700 filer, what's in a Form 700. Because if you're there fielding the questions, they'll probably come to you. So we want to give you just a big overview of what's on a Form 700. If you are also a Form 700 filer and you have questions, we have another session just for you coming up next week on the 17th. We're also going to talk about additional filing requirements for city officials, because while you're here, there's a bunch of stuff. There's behested payments, there's recusals, there's gift reporting. We will go over those broadly, just so that you know they exist. And lastly, we're going to go over filer support and resources. Now, this slide deck is going to be available along with all of the links that we're going to talk about today On our website, it's going to be in the same place where you signed up for this class. This session is also being recorded. You'll also be able to see a video right where you signed in for this class. It's going to be a YouTube video. All right, here we go. You'll see these orange slides as we go along. It's going to be the agenda with a check mark to just remind you of where we're at in the conversation. Okay, so let's talk about the Statement of Economic Interest Form 700, why it's filed and how the disclosures help transparency and accountability. So for those of you who were around Watergate, this requirement is the outgrowth of that period. Annual Form 700s are required to be filed by public officials and designated employees. Those are people who file on paper working in the departments throughout California, and they're filed every spring, every April 1st. They're also filed within 30 days of joining, assuming office, or leaving. That includes resigning office. The Form 700 provides transparency and it ensures accountability in two different ways. It provides necessary information to the public about what an official's personal financial interests are to ensure that the officials are making decisions that are in the best interests of the public and not enhancing their own personal finances. That's really important to the public. And you're going to hear me reinforce, this is a public document. Understand what to report so that things aren't over-reported. The public has a right to know what we do for work, but not more. The other reason that it exists and is good is because it's a reminder to the public official, us, about potential conflicts of interest so that we can make sure that we're making decisions and participating in governmental decisions that are appropriate. They are not conflicts of interest with what we do. We'll talk about what that means as we continue. So who files the Form 700? Right now, we have two groups of filers. The people who file electronically, you're going to hear net file, you're going to hear e-file, but they file electronically and they can't file on paper. These people are elected officials, department heads, board members, and commissioners. Please, if they ask you, can I just submit this on paper? The answer is no. The answer as to why is on our website. Check out the links in the lower right-hand corner of our screens when it's in gray and it says learn more online. Open this slide deck. Those links will take you to the answers. The next group of filers that files is filing on paper for the very last year. Filing on paper, and those are called designated employees. These are employees chosen by the department, not the Ethics Commission, chosen by the department and identified as people who make decisions that involve spending money. And they spend money in a way that can benefit them personally. They're working on contracts, they're working on approvals, they're working on RFPs. These individuals are identified by the department. If you have any questions, you'll know where to find it when we go through this training more, because we'll show you where to look it up. And it's in something called the Campaign and Governmental Conduct Code. Next, we'll talk about the requirements and the due dates for filing Form 700s. So as we talked about, there's an assuming office filing. It's due when you arrive, either as a board member, commissioner, department head, elected official, or even an employee. Within 30 days of arriving, you have to file a Form 700. And it's a very specific window. It's a 12-month look back because a member of the public would want to know, well, you're hired now and you're working now, but what have you been doing for the last year? Tell us. That's what you do in an assuming office Form 700. After you've been here an entire year, then you file something called an annual Form 700. This year, the annual is due April 1st, 2021. No exceptions. We will talk about that. No exceptions, paper or electronic. It's due April 1st. and it reports for the prior calendar year. So people filing an annual coming up, they're talking about their activity and their assets held from January 1 to December 31, 2020. The last filing that's given is called a leaving office. It's due within 30 days of leaving. And if you leave, say in 2021, you've already reported in your annual for last year. Now you have to just clean it up. You just have to go from January 1 this year to your last day in office and file just that last window, that partial piece of this year. Okay. Next, this is just an overview, a reinforcement of having to file a Form 700 electronically. Again, it's only for elected officials, department heads, board members, and commissioners. You have to use NetFile, and it has to be completed online by April 1st. We'll talk later about how to make sure that the Ethics Commission gets the information to set up the form. The filer can't do it themselves. You can't do it. Ethics has to do it, but you have to help us by providing us information. Next, we're going to talk about people who have to file the Form 700 on paper. This is the other half of the group. These are called designated employees, people who are identified by their department as people who have jobs that handles money or makes decisions in ways that could benefit them personally and financially. Those Form 700s are completed on paper, and this year they have to be wet signed. Last year things were a little crazy, everybody sheltering in place. This year, that wet signature, Form 700 on paper, has to be delivered to you, departmental filing officer, by April 1st. And the envelope, keep the envelope, please. The envelope has to be postmarked by April 1st, 2021. Now, some of you in departments, you may have people who are coming in periodically. They may be hand delivering a copy, leaving that wet signature, got to be a wet signature, leaving that wet signature form. If you have a date stamp machine, the Ethics Commission has a metal one. It's about the size of a bread box, and you put a piece of paper in and we use that. If you have a different type of hand stamp or a way of documenting the day that it was left for you, use it. Oh, and people will ask, why can't I DocuSign? Why can't I Adobe? Why can't I send you a PDF? The answer is because the state says no. The reality is all of those types of forms can either be manipulated or DocuSign is not approved by the state. So if somebody asks, can I please send you an electronic copy? Say no. The answer is no. Hard stop. It's no. Skipping back a bit to those e-filers, those high-level decision makers, elected officials, department heads, board members, and commissioners, most all of them, most all, have a requirement to take the Ethics and Sunshine training. It's on their electronic filing dashboard when they open up NetFile. It's due the same day, so that consistency helps. It's due Thursday, April 1st. If they're assuming office, it's due within 30 days, just like their assuming office Form 700 is. And again, it has to be filed on NetFile. It's easier now because the only way they can find the training is in NetFile, unless they're an employee, and that's generally not the case. So it's all in NetFile. If they ask you, where is it? Where's the link? How do I find it? It's where they complete their Form 700. They have to log into NetFile. So let's talk about all of the forms, either electronic or on paper. I was reinforcing the importance of making sure you report what you have to, but not more. And the reason is because it's a public document. Form 700s that are filed electronically, they're available online on the Ethics Commission's website under disclosures. The redactions are limited, generally personal contact information, which is why when we're talking to you and we're saying, how do we set up their form? Where do they want to be contacted? please, 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 please urge them not to give you their home address or phone number or even an email because it's a public document. Unredacted forms are available if they ask us. So while they can look it up online and they'll see it redacted, if they come to us and say they want the Form 700, it's going to be unredacted. So let's just avoid all that issue. Try and keep the forms as public as possible. For the Form 700 statements filed on paper, if someone came to you and asked for a Form 700, well, if we were in the office, you would be giving it to them unredacted. So remind your paper filers, no personal information. For document retention purposes, you're going to be keeping it for 7 years. There are local requirements or clauses that allow us to keep the paper for less than 7 years if you keep it in a certain electronic format. If you have questions, you can reach out to the Ethics Commission. We can help you understand what your department has chosen to do. And then the last publicly available form is the Sunshine and Ethics Training. Again, it's available electronically in our disclosures page, limited redactions, and we'll provide it unredacted to a member of the public if somebody asks us. So that's the first section. Are there any questions about what we've just gone over? Because now we're going to get into a little bit more about the detail of the Form 700 overview and the additional requirements for city officials. Before we do that, are there any questions about what we just talked about?
Stand by, Pat. We have some questions coming through.
Okay.
Okay, let's see. First, we have a Laura Hathorn.
Laura, Asian Art Museum, how are you?
Hi, I'm fine. Pat, am I the only one on this call?
No, there are nearly 24.
Oh, okay, good. It just showed me, you, and Ronald, and I thought, I feel terrible.
And again, this is being recorded. If you have specific information that's fact-based, we will work with you one-on-one. If these are general questions, ask away.
Okay. For the designated employees, if they deliver a wet signature, but they don't mail it, can I date stamp it? And I don't have a date stamp. Can I just write received on such and such a date?
You can. Please write in legibly so that we can know it's you.
Okay. And it's the other question I have is that I thought that you said with regard to ethics and sunshine that you used the phrase almost all people have to do the ethics and sunshine training, and I wanted to know if department heads definitely do have to do the ethics and sunshine or if they only have to do the Form 700.
Some of the people who are excluded are department heads. So generally speaking, and I know that there's at least one of you in this group, generally speaking, if you are a quasi-state entity, for example, a community college or one of the health systems or the school district, you are not bound by all of the local requirements such as Sunshine Ordinance, which is why you don't have to take the training. There are only 7 of you out of 69. So when I say almost all, I really mean almost all.
Okay. I can check with you later.
Sure.
All right, thank you. All right, Pat, we are going on to Jennifer Norris. Jennifer, do you have a question for Pat?
Jen, hi.
Hi, thanks for doing this. My question is, and I feel like I should know the answer, but I don't. Since the commissioners are electronic filing and we can all look up their form whenever we want through the ethics website and great transparency there, do I also need to print a copy of each of those and put them in a print a hard file here? Or is it fine that I allow you guys to maintain those records and that I only keep a file of my designated employees?
It is fine, and here is why. It's linked actually to the reason why we can't accept DocuSign and Adobe Forms. NetFile has been approved and vetted extensively by the state. There are only 2 e-filing entities that are allowed by the Fair Political Practices Commission. NetFile is one of them. Part of that acceptance of using NetFile is the understanding that the City and County of San Francisco will be the official repository for individuals who are filing in NetFile. That's why we can keep it and you don't have to. For your paper Form 700s, until they're e-filing, fingers crossed that is going to be April 2022. Paper filings for now, the department has to keep them.
Okay, thanks for your help.
Sure.
All right, thank you, Jennifer. All right, Pat, we're going on to, and just for everyone who is actually joining us here today, throughout this entire proceeding, we would like to make sure that you get in the practice if you are done asking a specific question to please unraise your hand, because there could be a possibility if I see the hand raised throughout the entire meeting, I probably will not be calling on you again. Thank you. All right, so we have a, let's see, I'm sorry. Bridget Badasow. Bridget, do you have a question for Pat?
Hi, Pat. How are
Hi.
you?
Good.
Listen, I know that if you assumed office between 10/1/20 and 3/31/21 and filed an assuming office form 700, you were required to, you don't have to fill out another form this time.
That is
But is that also true? You probably, I didn't catch this if you said it, for the Ethics and Sunshine Declaration form?
It is.
Okay.
Yes. It used to not be, but that was so confusing that they now follow each other.
Okay.
I'd also like to interject. Thank you to DAS and for Bridget's assistance on this. We are now working on making sure that what we provide on the website and what we require, like reading the Sunshine Ordinance, is going to be available in a friendlier format for the visually impaired. Stay tuned. We're going to have answers for that, but we are working with both lawyers and Lighthouse for the Blind to make sure that we're doing a better job than we currently are. Thanks, Bridget.
Sure. Take care, Pat.
All righty. Now
Hold
we're
on.
moving
No,
on
Pat,
to that.
no, Pat, we have another question, please.
Yeah.
Hold on just one second. They didn't put their name, but hello, do you have a question for Pat?
Hi there. Hi, Pat. It's Jamie from OCII.
Jamie, one
Hi.
of the 7.
So one question I had was regarding the designated employees. So I normally don't handle this, and our HR person is not on this call. And so when we submitted it to her, she did not mention that it had to be a wet signature. So I wanted to clarify on her behalf. The designated employees that you're referring to, is that like all of our employees, or are they just specific? And I may have missed that, so I apologize. Are there like a specific group that that designated title is referring to? Is that everyone?
It's a specific group.
Okay.
And it's everybody other than an elected, a department head, or in your case, a commissioner.
So it would be the other employees in the agency then, that's
Right.
not filing that file. Perfect.
Yes.
So I will let her know it has to be all wet signature.
And we have some visuals coming up so that when you look it up on the law, and the law is on our website and it's in this slide deck, hopefully it'll be clearer about the group of people who has to file on paper versus electronically.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you so much.
Sure.
All right, thank you, Jamie. Oh, Pat, we also have one more question.
Okay.
Okay, this is Miss Cheryl Cohen. Cheryl, do you have a question for Pat?
Yeah, quick question. I'm a little confused when you go forward, if you could explain who has to do the sunshine and ethics training. I know my e-filers do, but do my paper designated filers have to do the sunshine and ethics training too?
With the Ethics Commission, your paper filers do not. Separately from us, DHR, back in 2018, established a requirement for deputy directors and people who handle certain contracts to have to take the ethics training. I know that that list exists. I don't know who they are. It is a DHR managed requirement. And if you have any questions, I think you should check with DHR. But for the ethics filing, which is longer than the one on DHR, twice as long, ours is 2 hours. For the people who file an ethics and sunshine training declaration with ethics, they have to e-file. Everybody else, you don't have to.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, Pat, hold on just 1 second. All right, it looks like we're good to go, Pat.
Okay. All right, we're going to go ripping through this next section because it's a Form 700 overview. It's just to give you a flavor of what's filed. If you are a filer, there's information on our website, and there's a session just for you next Wednesday. Our Deputy City Attorney, Andrew Shen, will be there. He will be able to answer general questions, but like this one, it will be recorded and made available publicly. We can also set up appointments for you to talk with us and ask any specific questions. All right, let's go forward with this overview of what the Form 700 has. So for the departmental contacts and filers, we need you to make sure that people receive the information about what they have to file. If you don't get information from us and you're not in our roster of people who gets a regular notification, there is a place to sign up on our website. The link is down below, the right-hand corner under Officer Duties. The reason you want to get friendly with that page is because you'll want to know who has to file with ethics, who has to file on paper within the department, and you want to make sure that you can always help anybody who asks you what their disclosure category is. Laura, if I may use you as an example, because it's one that really resonates, I think. It's important to know a disclosure category because the departments choose what's important for its filers to file. Now, you would think a commissioner, because commissioners in most departments have to report everything. If there's a blank on the form and it applies to them and they have something to add, they fill it out. The Asian Art Museum examined what its commissioners are charged with doing. So very high level work on behalf of the Asian Art Museum, but all they have to report is their activities related to the Asian Art Museum. If they work in Americana, if they have a restaurant that's not related to the Asian Art Museum, they don't have to report any of that activity, none of that income, because it's not important to the public. What's important to the public is their role at the Asian Art Museum. Similarly, every department has a disclosure category for anybody who files a Form 700. Please be sure that you know where to find that information and how to help somebody understand what the requirements are. We'll have some visuals in a couple slides. By now, hopefully you've let all of your filers know that they have a deadline coming up and given them access to the Ethics Commission's website. And I know that more than a few of you have told them to ask us questions because they've asked. Keep them coming. We'll try and help as many people as we can. As we get closer to April 1, it'll be better if they write to our main mailbox at ethics.commission@sfgov.org and ask for an appointment, because then we'll set up a one-on-one with them. I'll make sure on my calendar it's not interrupted, and we'll get their answers, their questions answered. So as we're going forward, hopefully you are fielding those questions coming from filers about due dates. answering that hard question about why I can't submit a DocuSign or Adobe form. It's not a fun answer, but help them remember it's got to be wet signature. Of course, remind them that they can come to the Ethics Commission with their questions. Make sure that you have a way to document the statements to know that they come in on time. For me, for the Ethics Commission, I'm going in periodically, pinging our filers, and I'm going in, and we'll talk about this later, when the filing officer report is due, to make sure that I can file that report that says which of our paper filers did or did not file. Just a reminder, when you're getting those paper Form 700s, you have to do a full facial review. That means look at the cover sheet for every single Form 700 that comes in. Looking for the name and the position, and you're looking to make sure that the boxes are checked saying it's an annual report, whether or not there are any schedules, and most importantly, that there's contact information is filled out and that there's a wet signature. If you're missing any of that stuff, please get back to your filers and say, hey, fix this. And then when you have everything in hand, retain those completed forms in a safe place for public access. So just to remind you, for the annual filings, we have coming up next Wednesday, your form, which you're going to send us by DocuSign, saying that everybody filed. Oh, sorry, this is a certification of delivery. You're certifying that you sent the information out to everybody. Again, next Wednesday, the 17th, you're letting us know that you told everybody what they have to do. Next deadline, Monday, April 12th. It's usually the 11th, but the 11th is on a weekend. Monday, April 12th. Be sure to let us know, the forms in DocuSign, who did or did not get their Form 700 in by the deadline. Okay, now we'll go on quickly to filing officer duties year-round. So this is just a reminder. Throughout the year, when somebody comes or leaves and they're an e-filer, let us know, because we have to set up NetFile for them before they can have anything to submit. And then we'll set up the accounts and copy you when the information is available to them for filing. Now, March 1st, we rolled out new forms. So yay, no more PDFs, no more checking to see if I got it, no more checking to see if I got it and didn't do something with it, because now you know I got it and didn't do something with it. DocuSign is going to give you a record of what you've done. So it'll be in your DocuSign account. You'll know when you told me to do something, and if it's not done, you'll be able to say, hey, I told you that this filer came, you didn't set up their account, please do it. DocuSign is going to take some getting used to. It certainly is for me, but hopefully it will help make things easier for you. What you'll also find in those DocuSign forms when you have to open them up is that you don't have to submit a separate form for each individual anymore. Now it's just one form with a cover sheet, and you can just pile a bunch of names on it. The information is in the lower right-hand corner where you can learn more online. Just a little bit more on year-round duties. You want to make sure that annual filings, or assuming and leaving office filings, are filed within 30 days of assuming or leaving office. We also help keep track of that. Paper filers, you'll have to keep track. If anybody has questions about what to file or how to file, help them out with that information. Ask us if you'd like assistance. And then just keep following up with filers. You know them in a way that we will never know them, and you know them better for that reason. So we need you, and we need your help. Okay, last thing, late filing and enforcement. Oh God, this is not a fun slide. There is no provision under state law to extend the Form 700 due dates. There are rare exceptions. serious illness. And the interpretation that we've seen from the Fair Political Practices Commission is unfortunately just unable to file and comprehend. So there is no provision. If someone is in the hospital, we have been required to collect documentation. If someone is deployed for the military, there is DHR documentation that we can also use to excuse a filing by a due date. Other than that, not too many exceptions. There are late fees for late filed Form 700s. The late fee is $10 per day, up to $100 per filing. So if someone sits on 2 commissions and something is 11 days late, they're paying $100 late fee for each commission filing. Here's the big one. Non-filers can also be subject to something called disciplinary and/or enforcement actions with potential fines levied by the Ethics Commission on behalf of the state. And those violations can go up to $5,000. It's serious stuff. Please file and let us know how we can help if you have questions. In addition, if somebody doesn't file by the due date, and that means a Form 700 or a Sunshine and Ethics training declaration, that person is disqualified from participating in or voting on matters listed on their boards or commissions meeting agendas. Once the filing is submitted, they're automatically reinstated, but they are disqualified. Here's your requirement if they are disqualified and you're conducting the meeting. If they're disqualified, and you should check before each meeting, you are required to make a public disclosure before the room, in the minutes, recorded, that the person is disqualified. Because if someone wanted to attend a meeting and wasn't able to, they need to be able to understand from the minutes, from the meeting minutes themselves, whether or not someone was allowed to participate. The legal definition of participation that we are receiving based on advice letters is being in the room. That means they can't be in the room, sit in the audience and listen to the discussion. They cannot participate. Very important. Let us know if you have specific questions. Let's talk briefly about amendments. Because while that deadline is important, there's never a deadline for an amendment. If you file the form on time and you have something to correct, it's completely okay. No financial penalty, no deadlines, just file the amendment. If the amendment is electronic, make sure that you either understand on the FPPC which year the form applies to. Let us know if we can help, because each year the form changes. Therefore, each year the amendment form changes, and it changes because of the limits on the law. For example, the amount of gifts that have to be reported, or what has to be reported at all. So the amendment, the year of the amendment always has to match the year of the filing. You can make an amendment to any prior year filing, no penalties. And we're on to Q&A. Any questions about this overview about the Form 700?
Please, Dan.
Schedules, because I probably didn't. Let me just start over. The schedules talk about income, business positions held, gifts, and travel. If you have any questions, the information is on the FEPC's website and on our website, but that's the bulk of what the Form 700 reports. So are there any questions about your duties as a filing officer?
Please stand by. Okay, Pat, we got our first question from Roseanne Torres.
Hi, Roseanne.
Hi. I may have missed this because I received a phone call. Could you please go over what the difference is between the filing officer and the filing liaison? Thank you.
Yes. So the distinction is according to state law. Those of you who have been here for a bit know that we called everybody a filing officer. But we're now making a distinction. And you'll see it when it comes to letting us know about a new filer, a new e-filer. And you'll also see it with your level of responsibility. So as a filing officer, you're responsible because you've been given the duty by your department head. You are responsible for everything related to your paper filer, your employees. That means that if there's a notification from us about the legal responsibilities, you have to share it with your paper filers. If there's something about a deadline or a change, you're our conduit. We depend on you to communicate everything that we communicate to your paper filers. And the reason for that is we don't know who they are, so we depend on you. A filing liaison works with the Ethics Commission. Under state law, the Ethics Commission is responsible for filings and trainings taken by electeds, department heads, boards, and commissioners. Jen, that's why we also keep the paper, we also keep their electronic filings. We are their filing officer. You are our liaison to them. And boy, do we need you, because we also don't know what they do and what you see. So you are a liaison to the Ethics Commission if you are working with people who use NetFile. Does that help?
She put her hand down.
Okay.
So, all right. Looks like we have another question. Jonas, do you have a question for Pat?
I do. Hi, Pat. How are you? It's nice to see you.
Hi, Jonas.
So as you know, in the past, my commissioners, for some reason, have had issues with the Fair Political Practices Commission and filing or having their Form 700s acknowledged by them. Is that being resolved? I know there was some, I think there was something between in the net file, and I'm sort of trying to get ahead of the game this year so that they're not getting late filing letters in the mail when they filed timely.
Yes. So Jonas, I'll follow up with you separately about what I'm about to share. But generally, there's a group of filers who are subject to something called Government Code 87200, and it includes all of our electeds as well as our planning commissioners. The filings from NetFile are supposed to transmit seamlessly and electronically to the Fair Political Practices Commission, and last year they did not. And not only have I believe we have fixed it, but we also have a mechanism for dealing with it this year. So Jonas, I can go over that with you in detail later, but the answer is yes. It's been addressed. Anybody else? I'm mindful of the time. We're at 2:18.
Yeah, looks like we have no other questions at this time, Pat.
Okay. All right. Let's go over some additional filing requirements for city officials. Just some general reminders. Their reporting period for their Form 720 filed April 1st, 2021 is for calendar year 2020. The filer's position and their disclosure category determines what they have to file. We'll do a screenshot in a minute. And reportable interests, I don't know why this comes up, but you may get this question. The reportable financial interests include the filer's own filings as well as their partner or spouse and their dependent children. So keep that in mind. And the instructions are available online, or you can contact us. On the website, we're going to direct you a number of times to find the disclosure category of your filers. On the screen is an example of what the law looks like for the Ethics Commission. And you can see that it names the working job titles of people who have to file a paper Form 700. These are the people whose positions have to file on paper, and I'm going to be trekking into the office a couple times leading up to the due date to make sure that everybody has filed. If somebody puts in on their paper form 700 their job classification, like I'm in 1844, they have to change it. They have to change it to their working job title, because if a member of the public comes and asks for a paper form 700 and they ask you, can I have all the paper form 700s for your filing officer? They won't know what an 1844 is. They will know what somebody does. And that's likely how they'll ask you. That's why the law reflects that. It only lists working job titles. Also on our website is how to find the filer's disclosure category. It's sprinkled throughout the code. The code can be searched with a Control F, and you can look up disclosure category, or you can look up the name of your department. Reach out to us. We can do a screen share and a Teams meeting, and we can help you find the information that you need. You can also print out this information so that you can show it to somebody, say, see, you have the file. We'll help you. This is that reminder for the Form 700 cover page reminders for paper filers. Please make sure that the information that's provided is non-personal, that the schedules that are filed or not filed are checked off in the red box in the lower third of the form. Make sure the form is signed. This is just a visual to remind you of the types of information that's reported on the Form 700. It's going to be investments, if you own the business or you own just a piece of it. Interest in real property in the city and county of San Francisco, any income or loans, gifts that are received, and gifts of travel. There are exceptions to all of these things. For example, gifts received from somebody that's a family friend and it's a high dollar value, but you exchange a gift with them every holiday season. There's an exception. We'll show you the law so that you can know whether or not something needs to be reported. But reach out and ask us. We're here to help. Q&A time. Any questions?
Please stand by.
And while you're forming those questions, if you have any questions about the additional filing requirements for city officials, somebody has to recuse themselves because they have an interest in a matter coming before the board or commission. Questions about whether or not somebody has to submit a behested payments request. It's always been required for commissioners. Since last fall, it's been required for department heads. And if these individuals ask a member of the public to make a donation to a third-party entity on their behalf, there are specific requirements about what has to be disclosed. So a behested payment is going to be something that a private individual, it's a payment to a private individual or an entity made at the behest of the official. And there are exceptions, like if you stand in front of a big room and it's a fundraiser and you're talking to a certain number of people, there's not a reporting requirement, but we can help you understand that. And there's a great fact sheet on our website that talks about those types of requirements. So again, it'll be on our website. Ask us about any of those additional filing requirements.
Okay, Pat, looks like we have a question from Cheryl Cohen. Cheryl?
Hi there. Pat, is there a situation where a department might determine that there are more people they'd like to have file paper, even though there may not be listed in the code? I mean, we had to change the code, and I forget how that happened. They actually sent a notice around, are there changes you wish to make? At which point we did submit for one party, and they added that to the code. But now we find there are others that the department may wish to add. So may I ask them to file paper even though they're not designated in the code?
No, you may not.
Okay.
You may not. We have to adhere to the law. So
Okay.
when the changes to the code are made biennially, and they're made in even numbered years. So the effort started last May 2020. It went through a series of steps, including a change in the ordinance pursuant to a review and vote by the Board of Supervisors. And the code was updated effective February 22nd of this year. There are exceptions. They have to be documented. You'll have to work with your deputy city attorney. But for the most part, unless a position is brand new, newly created by the budget, never existed previously, in those cases, that person, if they have to file, they may be asked to file. You'll want to document why you're asking them to file. Otherwise, if they're not in the code, they do not have to file.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Pat. It looks like there's no other questions at this time.
Great. Okay, so just a quick overview about filer support and resources. This is what we had mentioned before about behested payments reporting. And again, I am mindful, it's 226. This slide deck is going to be available on the website where you joined this meeting. You can look at all of the requirements here in the bullets. You will also see my notes about the definitions of what a behested payment is, the terms that are used in the law, including interested party, donor. All of those things are in the fact sheet and on our website, and you can get there from this slide deck. Same for recusal notifications, very specific. We give you citations to the law, access to the forms, and instructions, both in the slide deck and on the website. Continuing with that pattern, you'll find information in the slide deck about gifts and conflicts of interest rules. Reminders for people if they ask you, what's the gift limit for this year? It's $520. We have people who, if they're going, well, when they could, go to a Warriors game, they hit that gift limit in a minute. So we can help you understand what those gift limits are and how to deal with the gift if it's given. Generally, you can give it to a nonprofit, you can return it, you can pay the difference, but you can't accept more than the gift limit. Conflicts of interest, you may have gotten a notification on March 5th from your department head. And it was a reminder to let us know if you have an update to your statement of incompatible activities, and make sure to post it. Post it in a public place where you post your other announcements. For example, at the Ethics Commission, we post it where we post our OSHA rules and other required legal forms. You also have to get a copy of the statement of incompatible activities into the hands of your employees, either electronically or on paper. The Ethics Commission does both, but it has to be in their hands by April 1st. And if people have questions, a great source, and I use this all the time, a great source is the City Attorney's Good Government Guide. It goes over these laws and more, which apply to employees, and it's in English. And it bumps you back into the citations for the law. It's a wonderful resource. It's on the City Attorney's website, and it's called the Good Government Guide. And that is it. Are there any questions?
Please stand by, Pat. Looks like we don't have any questions at this time.
All righty. Well, thank you for joining us. Thank you for taking an hour out of your day. If you have questions, you know where to find us. ethics.commission@sfgov.org. Schedule some time with us. Email your questions to that same main mailbox. It'll be distributed to the person who can best answer your question. Give us 3 business days to get those answers in. And as we get closer to April 1, it's going to get a little crazy. So be patient with us, but let us help you. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Pat.